McGrath comes in, it's on its way, it's there! The miracle on grass!
Owen with a kick to full forward, Cloak, not quite, Blair, Collingwood back in front.
The scene, he delays the give, Franklin, this is Buddy Franklin! This is the greatest showman! Poor fans can't bear to watch. They led by 28 points at one stage, but the perfect storm has erupted. Oh, who else? McDonald,
One more round to go before we get to the granny, and it's really shaping up to be one hell of a cap to one hell of a season. The finals so far have been fantastic. They really lived up to the hype and the expectations brought along by what was the regular season. I mean, nothing's changed. If anything, it's only gotten crazier. We've gone some 1-point games. I mean, 2 1-point games, which we were streaming for. So go ahead and make sure to check us out for that. We'll be live for the Port Adelaide and the Doggies here coming up this weekend. So go on over to Twitch TV/Fourth and Long Radio. But there's my plug. It's a good time there. But the week 1 of finals and then the semifinals. A lot of stuff going on, especially off the field as well, with looking like Lachie Neale. Does he want to go? Maybe. Yes. Now we're not sure. It's all changing over just the span of a day. So this is fun. Russ Lyon doesn't go through with Carlton here. And then we're going to take a look at the preliminary finals. Take a look at who the top 4 teams left are. Who's the scariest team? And of course, who's going to be moving on to the grand final. But of course, I'm your host, Russ Lyon, joined alongside by the Fourth Long AFL correspondent, Coach Donnie Hess. And Coach, how are we feeling with only 1 round to go before the grand final?
Oh, this is getting to the point where it starts to almost get kind of sad. There's 3 footy games left in the season.
Don't talk about that, damn it.
That is it. But to be honest, these first 2 weeks of finals have been absolutely cracking. As Ross said, both the 2 games that we have streamed, both the 2 games that we have watched have come down to 1-point thrillers. So if I'm a Port Adelaide and Western Bulldogs fan, I'm not sure if I should be super excited because I know the game's going to be close, or super angry because we know it's going to be a 1-point win potentially. So I'm looking forward to it. Let's look at these games because there have been some fascinating results over these previous 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. Well, first off, of course, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Hope you've been enjoying the finals just as much as we have. And if you need to check up on anything related to the AFL from us here at Fourth and Long, go on over to thefourthandlong.com/AFL. But let's get things started with the first game. Let's take a look at the week 1 of finals. Then we're going to move into the semifinals. Guys, we got to see how we got here. But, of course, that first game was Port Adelaide and the Geelong Cats. And I know Port ended up winning by 43, but this game really, when watching it, it didn't feel like a 43-point margin. It felt like it should have been more by Port Adelaide, if I'm being honest here. Because, I mean, Geelong looked they looked sloppy, and Port Adelaide looked like the team that Donnie thinks is going to win the grand final ultimately. And so it was a really great performance by Port Adelaide. It kind of shut a lot of people up, if we're being honest. A lot of people are hesitant, me included, on Port Adelaide this regular season. Then we got to see if they can perform come finals. And even though there wasn't a bye week for the Geelong Cats, it's another opening round where they lose, and they haven't been great historically. But, I mean, we saw what happens in the second round. That's when they turn things on. But, Donnie, what did you think about this one here?
Oh, this was a cracking game of footy, but this was the Port Adelaide that, as I said in the preview show of the finals, I said, this is the Port Adelaide I thought we could potentially see. Mm-hmm. Healthy, solid, quick, goal-scoring, great defensive team that has everything that you need to win a grand final, and they showed it. We'll have to see if that steps up in the next game, considering with this win, they jump all the way to the preliminary finals and didn't have to play last week. But, man, this was the Port Adelaide team that I thought we could potentially see in the finals, and I'm going to pat myself on the back on that one.
That's a good one there, Donnie. One hell of a tip. And let's talk about the game that we did stream for week one of the finals. That was the third rendition of the Sydney Derby in 2021. And man, this game was just as good as the previous two have been. This was my favorite game of the round. It was just a really damn good, really damn fun game. We live stream. We had the Buddy 1000 goal counter going. We got dangerously close there. It looked especially early like he might be able to score 8 goals and actually reach 1,000. But it was him. It was Isaac Heaney. They combined for 7 in this one. But that was just barely not enough as GWS takes this game by 1 point on the back by solid games by Taranto, by Toby Green, by Mumford, everyone contributing there. It was a really just all-around good game. And Sydney, they kicked, what was it, like 6 behinds to close out the game?
It was 7. 2-7. They scored 2 goals, 7 in the fourth quarter, which,
Yep.
I mean,
And I
to be
was crapping my pants in that fourth quarter. Oh, it was so bad.
rewatching the stream was hilarious because you could tell the agony because we had my buddy Brad, who's also a Roosters player, who's also a huge Swans fan, join in by then onto the live stream, and just the agony each time the behinds went through and we were a point closer. But you could it was so like agonizing there at the end. But I mean, all due respect, GWS won this game because of the second quarter. They got out to a nice lead and they held it the rest of the game. And Sydney had a chance to win it. But if you really look at it, Sydney lost the game because late in the game, Buddy Franklin, Sam Wicks, James Bell all had chances to win the game and all kicked behind. So it's as crazy as this season was for the Swans, and I think a lot of Swannies fans that are through communications, they're proud, but it's a bitter taste at the end to lose that way by 1 point to your bitter rivals in a game that you had in the fourth quarter. You just didn't finish, and you can't kick goals. You can't win footy games.
At least it was a damn good game by either team. I had Sydney in that one, so I was surprised that they went in the first round. But it was nice to be able to see my GWS Giants get their first finals win of me being a fan of the AFL. So got that going for me at least. But the last 2 games were some ones that were kind of that were really interesting for their own reasons. I mean, with Melbourne Brisbane, it was where at least the talk for me, a lot of people around the community was, can Melbourne's defense hold up against this Brisbane offense that's been high-powered, that's looking really good going to finals? And Melbourne's defense has been a little bit lackluster, and that's what they pride themselves on this season. And their offense wasn't really there as well. But what do you say? We go out, not only do they hold the Lions to 60, but the D's also put up 93 of their own points, and they looked really solid and absolutely scary, and they looked like that they scored the most amount of points, or that they got the most amount of points and finished atop the ladder this season. And then with the Western Bulldogs and the Essendon Bombers, I was a bit disappointed by Essendon's effort, to be honest. I mean, I know the finals are completely different from the regular season, but this was just one hell of a way to end it because, I mean, it was a really solid first half by either team, but then Essendon becomes the first team in 56 years to not score a goal in a half of a finals game. And obviously, that's not very good.
This was just both of these 2 games were games where I think a lot of people gave the underdog team a lot of credit, but the experienced, higher ranked teams ended up getting the win. I mean, it doesn't help. Brisbane loses McStay early in the game to a concussion and a broken nose, and that really hurt because I think McStay kind of rounds out that front 4 for the Brisbane Lions with Lincoln McCarthy, Cameron, and Danaher. And losing him it threw the Brisbane Lions offense off most of that game. So that was one of those. Melbourne got a gift with McStay going out because it was one less headache they had to worry about, which only made their defense that much better. And then with Essendon, it was the first 10 minutes of the game. Essendon was up and about. They were getting after it, but the Doggies just did what they needed to do. It was an ugly, sloppy game in kind of horrible weather conditions. Launceston was not as nice to the Doggies Essendon game as it was the Sydney Derby the day before. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot different game. And 85 points in wet weather footy is pretty impressive by the Western Bulldogs. But again, a lot like Sydney, Essendon, it's the bitter pill to swallow after a good season, after a surprisingly good season for a lot of people. But there's still a lot of positive things to go out. But Doggies with a big, massive win there. They keep themselves in the finals and they set themselves up for a semifinal against Brisbane that a lot of people were quite intrigued with.
Mm-hmm. I mean, us included, which is one of the reasons that we had to stream it. Also, it's totally not because I'm at work for the Friday night games for you guys, but it's what it is. Oh man, but let's roll into the semifinals here. That first game was a rematch of something that happened about like 6 or so weeks ago at this point, and that was the Geelong Cats and the GWS Giants. If you remember, in that game, the Giants they got out to a really solid lead over the Cats. They kind of let the Cats get back in the game, but ultimately they won the game feeling really good about themselves and by a decent margin. This game was not that game. It was, a depleted GWS team just didn't really seem like it was able to hold up to the savvy Geelong Cats, those veterans, those battle-tested guys, and just a really good team are the Geelong Cats, especially kind of like I said earlier, in the second round of the playoffs. Once again, they get another win there. And it doesn't help when you got that bad man, Tommy Hawkins, coming into form just in time for the finals. And he kicks 5 in this one. Poor Tim Taranto just wasn't able to stop him. And also, they just couldn't get him any help. But at least if you look for GWS, this was they made it a lot farther than a lot of people thought they would, especially, me included, especially after that just really, really abysmal start to the season. We went from trying to say, oh, is Leon Cameron going to be fired? Should he be fired? To, hey, Leon Cameron, Coach of the Year, maybe? So, the team really turned themselves around this year. They showed grit. They showed toughness. And in the fourth quarter, it's not like they gave up on this game. You saw them fighting, scrapping the whole way. So I thought, although it was a loss, this was still a really good season, all things considered, especially what happened in the beginning.
Yeah, this was a game where I felt bad for GWS. I really, really did, because this was not the GWS from the previous week. Toby Green goes out because of the brain fade that he has with umpire Matt Stevick. Let's not open up that can of worms because that's been talked to death and it is unnecessary to go back to. And then you lose Tom Green to a broken arm, and you lose another player to a hamstring injury. This was a GWS team that was being held together with duct tape and spit. They were just so beat up. They were undermanned, and they did the best that they possibly could. And as a lot of the coverages had said, Geelong was a team that plays better in that second game of the finals than they do the first, almost every time. And it came true. Zach Toohey comes in. Tom Stewart is almost forgotten about when it comes to it, because Toohey goes for 31 disposals and loses his mind and kind of goes haywire or absolutely bananas on GWS. And I think that really helped change the game for Geelong. So this is a little bit more of the Cats that we were expecting into the finals, but unfortunately their early round losses reared its head this year. But a good bounce back game here, which sets up for a very tantalizing semifinal, preliminary final match with Melbourne. So I'm looking forward to this one.
That's going to be a damn good one. And then, of course, the game that we streamed, the Brisbane Lions versus the Western Bulldogs. This was one of the best games of the season, and quite frankly, this is just one of the best games that I've been able to watch as a fan, because this game had everything. Had really high scoring, or was really potent offenses early on, and then slowed down. We saw some solid defenses. We saw drama. We saw people go off with injuries. We saw that affect the game there. And we really saw everything you want in a footy game, especially a 1-point margin. We got that, and that was with a goal. It was about 45 seconds left in this one too, so really late in the game. So this was fantastic. It was ultimately the Doggies' midfield and the offense just being a little bit too much for that Brisbane team to handle. They dropped back-to-back games in the finals. You had Bailey Smith leading the Doggies with 3, and then you got to take a look at what these. Are the Lions just having issues getting things done in September? We got to take a look at Chris Fagan, now 1-5 in the finals.
This was just a game where, again, the McStay injury really reared its ugly head in this one. But Cameron Danaher and the forward line did everything they possibly could to make up for that loss. And they played a really good game. But I think the Duggies are starting to kind of find the form that they had earlier in the year. I mean, Bailey Smith with a great goal to win the game and just an incredible performance. The only thing that's a tiny bit scary for Duggies fans is Bontempelli left the game with an apparent injury. Everything that I'm hearing, the scans look good. They think he might be sore, but he should still be able to go. The part that's the most frustrating for Dogs fan is Cody Waitman is out. Concussion protocol has ruled him out. He will not be able to play against Port, and that is a massive blow for that forward line because he had been playing so well this year. The Doggies found a way to win, so it'll be interesting to see who they bring in. Is it a Jamal Ugle-Hagan? Is it a veteran? We'll have to see. It'll be fascinating. But if I'm a Duggies fan, I'm still slightly concerned because Cody Waitman is a big loss, especially going into a very hostile Adelaide to play Port Adelaide for a chance to go to the Granny.
Right. Oh man, but everything going down here and Bontempelli looking like himself. Thank God he's going to be active this week too because the comp is just better with him. But man, what a matchup we get to look forward to with possibly two Brownlow medal finalists. Maybe a couple of the favorites here. To face off head to head. Oh man, you really just can't make that stuff up. I mean, with Ollie Wines and Bont going at it, that is going to be absolutely tremendous. But before we get to our look at the preliminary finals, just got talk a couple things here. Kind of what I was saying in the beginning, this has just been an ever-evolving news story since it broke. But Lachie Neale would reportedly ask for a trade out of Brisbane because family reasons, wants to go back to Western Australia, so he's looking to go back to Fremantle. But now, he's apparently the news coming out is that he hasn't asked for a trade yet, but it's very likely they won't be surprised if he asks for a trade. He's not going to ask for a trade, but he's probably going to ask for a trade. Did I sum that up right?
Oh, about as close as you possibly get, and is probably about as accurate as some of them get. So I know a lot of people, like I reached out to Dockerman, I reached out to Gil Griffin, I reached out to several of my very well-known Freo fans when I saw this headline. It says Lachie Neale requests trade back to Fremantle. And I had to. I wanted to know what they thought. So I reached out to all of them just to kind of see. And it was not exactly as joyous as I originally thought it would be. Like I thought they'd be out of their minds excited. I mean, Chair is going to most likely go. Lachie Neale steps in. You'd think obvious upgrade, and it wasn't met with as much joy as I probably expected. Now,
I was surprised
again,
by that too. You're right.
Freo fans have become very pessimistic, which I completely understand the way that the last couple of seasons have gone, and I don't begrudge them. But I do understand several of their arguments is they've got some nice picks going into this draft, and they're going to have to trade probably at least pick 6, which they're going to get for Chera. They're going to have to at least trade that in the Lachie Neale trade, if not more, if they make the deal. So it's very, very interesting. But as far as I am aware, the last that I knew is like I said, it hit Lachie Neale request trade, and it blew up. Every Australian media person that I follow was like, breaking news, yada, yada, yada. And then in the last 24 hours, it has severely and completely shifted from he wants out of Fremantle. He wants to go back to, they had his exit meeting and he hasn't asked for a trade. He doesn't want to go back as of now, but his wife would like to. His wife is pregnant with their child and sounds like she wants to be closer to home with family back in Perth. So there's a possibility that he may ask for a trade, but he hasn't specifically asked for it yet. And I think a lot of people assume it's Fremantle because there's no way West Coast is going to be able to trade for Lachie Neale. It's just not possible. So free. But then there is as I kind of said earlier, there's so many different variables on how these deals would happen because Chera wants to go back. Carlton seems to be the most likely landing spot for him, which will probably bring them pick 6, if not maybe more. But is basically those two picks going to both be needed to bring in Lachie Neale? Which we don't know. We don't know how valuable Brisbane will look at it when it comes to trade fodder and what they're going to ask for. So there's still a lot of speculation on this. If you ask me right now, I still think it's way too early to go. But if his wife does, it will not shock me to see Lachie Neale in Freo in the purple and white come next year, just because it will uncomplicate a lot of things. But again, this is not as cut and dry as I think some people would think. I mean, this isn't an NFL superstar like Tom Brady saying I'd like to be traded to Green Bay. I mean, it's not that it's not one of those where they're just going to welcome him in with open arms. This is I'm not so sure about that, which is I actually respect it because it shows that they're not just thinking about next season. They're thinking about the future, which I really respect that, because those 2 draft picks, 6 and 8, could be game changers, especially if you
Lachie Neales, you know?
Well, it could be a Lachie Neale and it could be a lockdown defender or a 50 goal a game, 50 goal a season.
It's so smart by Freo for not just like jumping the gun and saying, yes, let's get him back. Where it's, hey, maybe we can take a look and see what's going to be there for us, 2, 3, 4 years down the line, which is, I mean, that's ultimately what you want to see as a fan. There's something to winning now, but there's also something to screwing over your team now. And then, I mean, who knows if Lachie Neale actually works out the way everyone wants him to.
I'm not sure if it would screw over your team. It might change the dynamic of your team, because you do have Dave Mundy, you have Nat Fife, you have Caleb Sarong, you have Brayshaw. It's not like your midfield is hurting at Freo. But if you bring in a Lachie Neale, who has to move? I mean, do you move Nat Fife forward? Which I honestly, if this move happens for me, my ultimate outcome, I move Nat Fife forward to the center half forward or full forward line and move Tabana up to the center half forward, because I think then that way you protect Fife. Fife can maybe drift into the middle occasionally, a lot like Dusty, start in the middle and then shift forward and then switch a forward or a mid forward into the midfield during the majority of play. That way Fife isn't always in the guts of the contests. He's more forward, so you can use his skill there. The only issue, as we've kind of noted over this last season, is his goal kicking has been, how to say this nicely, atrocious. Okay, we'll say it. We'll just go out and say it. Sorry, Freo fans. It's the truth. His goal kicking has been atrocious from set shots. So is it Dave Mundy that you move forward? Is Dave Mundy go to the center half back line? Maybe, and where you use his talent and his skill with the footy at that center half back position, which a lot of teams now are using as their slingshot areas up the field. So there's a lot of different kind of ways they could go, but it's how to make him a big impact player if he does come, and not upset the apple cart with the young talent and the guys that are there is the biggest question that Coach Longmuir would have to figure out if they do find a way to bring Lachie Neale in.
Very good point there. Then going from Freo, let's talk a little bit of Carlton stuff here. So Russ Lyon, I mean, we all thought he was going to be the next head coach of the Carlton Blues. After we all thought he was going to be the next head coach of the Collingwood Magpies. And now he's not going to be the next head coach of either team. Because he pulled out and says, essentially, hey, I don't want to be the coach of here anymore. So, who's Carlton going to hire? Will Russ Lyon return next season? And should they be sending David Teague a heartfelt apology at this point?
Oh, I love that you went there, because honestly, that's I've seen a few people that have actually brought that particular topic up. So the reason a lot of people may not know this, but the reason Ross Lyon dropped out is not because he didn't want to coach it. It's because Carlton committed to, as they've been commenting a lot, like the Philadelphia 76ers, the process. And unfortunately, when you've got an experienced veteran coach like Ross Lyon, he didn't want to deal with that. He doesn't want to deal with it. He wants interview me if I'm it, give me the job. Don't, drag me around here with two or three other people. And I completely understand that because he's not a rookie coach he's been through St. Kilda and Frio. He's done it. He knows what he's talking about. So you don't want to, pardon me here. You don't want to jerk the guy around. So I understand why he basically said, yeah, I'm out. I'm done. And so Carlton really, now they're stuck with this problem of, because they want to do this process, the best candidate, the candidate everybody said is going to be Carlton's next head coach, is gone. And now you go to, well, who's left? And again, as we said, Dave T got fired because I think a lot of people thought Alistair Clarkson, Ross Lyon, one of those two will get the job.
Yep.
No way. Neither of them have. They've both pulled out. Ross Lyon didn't want to go through the process. Alistair Clarkson says, I am taking next year off no matter what. Leave me alone. Now Carlton's standing here. No Lyon, no Teague, no Clarkson, no coach. And they have now found a way, somehow, some way. Carlton and Collingwood continue to find a way to try to outdo each other on who can stuff up more.
It's quite amazing, actually. It's almost remarkable and impressive.
And for clubs that have so much lineage and years, Carlton has made Collingwood look like geniuses at this point. They fire Buckley and everybody, and they fire Buckley after the disastrous offseason last year, which again is being compounded this year by finishing second to last. And now GWS gets their pick due to an early trade. But Carlton has now found a way to leapfrog Collingwood on stuffing up and getting bigger and bigger stuff ups because they didn't fire Teague, and everybody was making a big deal. Well, if they're going to bring in Clarkson or Lyon, why are they keeping Teague? Why is Teague doing exit interviews? Less than 48 hours later, Teague has been sacked. Okay, well, now Ross Lyon and Alistair Clarkson. 24 hours later, Alistair Clarkson says, nope, I'm taking next year off. I don't think so. And then it became Ross Lyon. Well, then over the next 72 hours, half the board doesn't like Ross Lyon because of everything that went down at Frio. There's a split. The new president wants him, but there's not really sure. The new president still wants Alistair Clarkson. Yeah, and just an absolute shitstorm.
I think
boom.
one thing safe to say here is that nothing is going right for Carlton and their head coach search.
The only thing that I think is somewhat of a shining light is they still have a pretty good list when it comes to talent, but it's, who are they going to get to coach? Most of the assistant coaches that they're looking at aren't available because they're still coaching in the finals. Don Pike at Sydney has pulled out of all coaching. He loves what he's doing at Sydney, wants to stay there, which I, as a Sydney fan, I'm over the moon for what his impact that he made at Sydney. So when he was being talked as being the Collingwood coach, a lot of Sydney fans were like, oh no. But when he pulled out of that particular job, I think a lot of people were super excited about that. But it's just been such a carousel of mismanagement that I don't know who Carlton's going to get that's going to be able to fix this as quickly as I think Carlton think they would need to fix it. So it's going to be a long off season for the Baggy Blues if they cannot find somebody to take over this job that's a veteran coach that's willing to go through a process.
It's been a tough last couple seasons to be a Blues fan, and hopefully for their sake, their suffering will come to an end soon here. But let's wrap things up, kind of take a look at the preliminary finals. First off, want to rank the last four teams, who's the scariest team of them, and of course give our tips for this round. But I'm thinking here that based off their performances, obviously we only have to base some of them off of what we saw in the week one of the finals, and then what we saw in Emmys 1 and then the second round here. But the first team that I'm going to let's start from 4-1. 4, the Geelong Cats. And obviously it's not because any of these teams are bad. They're all great teams. That's why they're the last four teams remaining. But I just feel like Geelong has the best potential to kind of lay a stinker, if I'm being honest, when it comes to these last possible couple games here. Next up, I have the Western Bulldogs, who've definitely taken back the reins on their season. They finished very poorly, but now they look as good as ever and as strong as they ever did during the regular season. So they're right there. Of course, Donnie's contending team, his pick for the Granny. I got Port Adelaide coming in number 2 because their offense is solid, their midfield looks very well rounded, and their defense is there to build to back them up. But given what we saw from Melbourne in the round 1 of the finals this season, with they just shut down every question that someone could have for them, and they looked like that team with that shutdown, with that lockdown defense, and they even had the offense to boot. So if they're able to keep it up, they're going to be running away with this grand final essentially. With a defense like that, with an offense like that, it's very, very hard to compete with. And they're looking the best right now, Donnie. But ultimately, I gotta say that the Western Bulldogs are the scariest team of the comp.
Oh boy, an interesting group there. So here's my 4 weakest to strongest, 4-1, and then my scariest team. Number 4, I have the Western Bulldogs. I think the Cody Waitman injury is going to affect him in this round. I think they are the most vulnerable team of the 2 lower seeds of between them and the Cats. That's vulnerable going in to this preliminary final round. I have the Cats number 3. The Tom Stewart injury, I think, may become a glaring omission injury here against Melbourne because of the height and ability of some of the forward line of the D's. But I will caveat this. If the D's play better than they did last time, I don't think it'll be as interesting a game this week. But the Cats know they dominated the last time these 2 teams played, and they let it slip. Will they make an adjustment? How will they make an adjustment? So on and so forth. I have the D's at 2 because, again, they have the tougher matchup of the 2 in this round. I go by the Cats are more dangerous than the Doggies just by looking at it by form, by what they're bringing in, by lack of injuries, everything like that. And the fact that the Cats nearly beat the D's just a few short weeks ago in round 23, 3 weeks ago. So do the D's come out and play better? If they do, I think they win. I think they win this game. They get themselves to the granny for sure. But the Cats are never easy. Chris Scott always gets them up. We'll have to see. This is out in Perth, so it'll be fascinating to see. What's the fan differentiation? How many D's? How many Cats supporters?
I'm excited for the news coming out with the tickets where it's going to be
It's sold
packed.
out.
Oh man, it's so good.
Out.
I'm so excited for the atmosphere. Sold out Optus Stadium for a preliminary final.
And a Friday night game is going to be absolutely magnificent. And then number 1, I have Port because that last round performance against these Cats was spectacular.
Yes,
that was the Port I expected. That was the Port I saw from last year. That was the Port that, as I said in the preview show, if they play their best footy, they are darn near impossible to stop offensively, and defensively with Alir and Houston and McKenzie, they are hard to score on too. They're going to be very, very good. And no Cody Waitman, a Bontempelli that could not be 100%. They have a very good shot of knocking the doggies off and getting to a granny in Perth. And if Orazio Fantasia is healthy, they are fully healthy, because it sounds like Georgiades should be back. They're going to be full strength going into this game. That is a scary proposition, which transitions to my scariest team, because I think it's the Port Adelaide Power, because they're healthy. If you really look at it, Dougie's Cody Waitman's injured. Geelong Cats, Tom Stewart's out. The D's, they're relatively healthy, but they've been unimpressive at times forward of the footy. Port Adelaide is playing the best footy of these 4 right now. Port Adelaide is playing the best footy from the previous few rounds in, and the previous rounds in the home and away. So I think the scariest team and the best team is the Port Adelaide Power, not only because of the great matchup with the Western Bulldogs, but they could be humming going into that grand final, even with a week off.
It's going to be damn good. So, Tawny, why don't we just get to the tipping already with this, man? And this is a tough one, to be honest, because I mean, I almost want to pick the top seeds, but also The bottom seeds are very, very good, and it really could go either way here. I think with the first one though, Melbourne and Geelong, I will go with the D's. I think they will be able to do a lot better job stopping Tom Hawkins, or at least slowing down Cameron there, and then maybe even limiting Patrick Dangerfield a little bit. If their defense is able to play. And they don't give up another 5 goals to Tom Hawkins like what GWS did. They are very well in this game. And we'll see. Geelong, not sure if they're... if Melbourne's offense could play... I know Brisbane is known for their defense, but if Melbourne's offense is able to keep that momentum going, it's going to be a very tough game for the Cats. But if anyone could do it, the Cats could easily make it back to the grand final this year. I'll just go with the D's.
I'm going to tip the D's, but this is the matchup that's the hardest to tip because I don't know what Cats team is going to show. Mm-hmm. If it's the Cats team from the round 23 game, the D's are going to have a long night. It's not going to be easy. I think May gets the matchup against Hawkins, but the question is, who does Lever get? Does Lever take Cameron? Mm-hmm. I don't think so, because Cameron's going to drift in and out. He's not going to let Lever be able to sit back and take intercept marks. I think Lever takes a Rowan or a Garen Myers to where he can let them go up to the footy if they want to, and he can sit back in the hole and play intercept marker, which is what he's going to do. If you're Coach Scott, you have to match up, try to get Lever on a Cameron. And if Gary Rowan's on it, Rowan's got to be away from the footy or don't dive towards the contest to let Lever be able to sit off and get intercept marks. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tip the D's on this one, but this is the hardest one of the two, in my personal opinion, because if the Cats on their day can beat the D's, I think they have the offensive firepower to be able to score, especially with Cameron's ability to kind of be a pain. And I think Hawkins and May is going to
good ability of doing
that. Hawkins and May is going to be like a heavyweight fight. It is an absolute going to be a slugfest between those two, and especially in a preliminary final with a chance to get to a granny. That one's going to be an incredible matchup. I'm going to tip the D, but the Cats, I give them a nod that there's a really good opportunity for the Cats here to get to another granny.
Mm-hmm. Now, with Port Adelaide and the Western Bulldogs, of course, we'll be streaming this game, so make sure to go on over to twitch.tv/Fourth and Long Radio. Go ahead and follow, so we're ready for that stream come Saturday. But, man, honestly, I'm going to tip Port Adelaide here because they are the better team right now. They should be the better team. They should be able to win this game. But also, just given what I've seen from the Western Bulldogs the last couple of rounds, they scare me, because they almost just keep on trying to almost exceed expectations. Their defense has looked good, and their offense has been able to. They were able to outperform that Brisbane Lions team who we all thought had the best offense, or at least a lot of us thought had the best offense at the comp, or at least the best offense remaining here. But for all your points, Donnie, kind of what we were talking about earlier, Port Adelaide is playing their best footy all season long. Probably their best footy of the last handful of years as well. They've never looked better, and like you said, they are healthy. So let's go Port Adelaide. But man, the Doggies, they scare the hell out of me in this one.
Oh, I didn't come up with all those points to tip the Doggies. I know, Frode, I'm sorry, but I'm going to tip the Port Adelaide Power on this one. I think Cody Waitman is a massive injury in this. Mm-hmm. The travel for the Dogs, they're having to travel to the Gabba, from Launceston to the Gabba, and now to Port Adelaide to play Port Adelaide at home, who've been sleeping in their own beds. They've had a week of rest. The only thing here, and it's the same thing with the Cats in Melbourne, the first 10 minutes, keep an eye on this game. Because if the Cats and the Dogs can get a lead early, get ahead, will we see the D's and the Port Adelaide Power press because they've been rusty because they haven't played for a week? This is the scary game sometimes for the top two seats because you have a team that's been playing. They know it. So the first 10 minutes, they're going to be up and about because they're going to have the energy. They'll have been played. They have been training. They're much more game ready now. But then it comes to the fourth quarter, and that's when the rest sometimes rears its ugly head, because these teams that have played an extra game, that's when it shows there. So the first 10 minutes for both of these games. And then the fourth quarter is really going to determine, I think, Port being at home with the Port Adelaide fans, that's a very, very difficult um, that's going to be very difficult for the Doggies to get by. And with the loss of Cody Waitman, this becomes a Herculean effort, even if Bont was fully healthy. And with Bont potentially carrying a little bit of a niggle, I'm really worried the Doggies are just going to fall a tiny bit short, which is kind of sad for how good they've been most of this season.
Yeah. Man, honestly, so we're both expecting a Melbourne Demons Port Adelaide Power Final. If that does have the top 1 and 2 teams in the league from our position, ooh boy, that is going to be some damn good footy. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here. Of course, with the finals being as they are, we didn't drop a show last round. We're not going to drop a show for the prelims, but we are going to get you one hell of a grand final preview with hopefully some special guests. So we're getting everything ready. So stay tuned, and I hope you catch us this time. But yeah.
And before we go off, we'll let everybody know to keep an eye on it for the grand final preview. I'm going to do Coach Hess's all Australian team,
and he's going to do it right.
Here's the caveat: the players are going to be in the correct positions. So wingers will be on this team, forwards will be in forward positions, not midfielders, and defenders will be in defenders positions. So please tune into that to see who I have tipped as my all-Australian team. And the best part is, by the time we talk to you guys again, the Brownlow medal will have been announced, mark of the year, goal of the year will be announced, so we can chat that too. So we're hoping to get a hold of our old buddy Brian Barish to be able to do that, since we did it last year. I think it would be really appropriate to have another chat with him, since he is one of the premier footy minds here in the States. So hopefully we will have Brian Barish next week with us.
And it's going to be a damn good time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And Donnie, your thoughts on the finals so far in one word or phrase?
Oh, the finals so far, amazing. These finals have been amazing. Yes, there's been some blowouts. There have been some kind of rotten games, shall we say, but two absolutely magnificent games that I'm hoping to keep the jinx alive, that the game that we have streamed has been close, it has been entertaining, and it has been absolutely awesome to watch. So I'm hoping that we are 3 for 3 in that, and we get another 1 point thriller, or 3 or 5. Something less than a goal are always fun, thrilling games. I know the Port Adelaide and Western Bulldog fans are probably going, no.
Right. Well, maybe another 1 point game might be a little too much for, but hey, we'll see what we can get. So, of course, like I said, make sure to check out everything you need over at thefourthandlong.com/AFL. Check us out on Twitch, twitch.tv/fourthandlongradio. And ladies and gentlemen, we will catch you the week of the grand final. Stay tuned and check out the stream.